to the gate, and I gave for those boys the bread, and then they took me back. And we came back, and they took us, and we was going maybe one more day. They took us to Theresienstadt. And when we came in Theresienstadt, a lot of people were there. That was a ghetto, Theresienstadt. And they prepared to kill all of us. They made ovens there, and they wanted to do the same they did in Auschwitz. When we arrived there, so people come to see who we are and what we are doing. There was a guy, now my husband's, a cousin. And he told me who he is, and I told him who I am, and he went and he bring me bread, and he bring us to eat. And my husband, my first husband, and my baby never came back. And in Theresienstadt, we were a few weeks, and then the Russian came in and free us. And that was the story. After they free us, we wanted to go out from the camp, but we couldn't. They closed it. They made a quarantine because it was typhus, a sickness typhus, and they didn't let out nobody. But after a few days, a cousin of mine came. He was an army officer from Czechoslovakia, and he took me out to Prague.
We were brought into a huge, big barrack. You were told to strip. SS men were walking freely there, but so were people that were in prison clothes. They were prisoners. And in there, you were told to strip. The only thing you should hold on to is your shoes. At the beginning, nobody was willing to strip. Everybody looked about themselves, and nobody was willing. But they made sure that you'll strip fast. They picked out one or two. First, they beat them up well, and at the end, they shot one. So you got so scared that you stripped in a hurry and walked away from the bundle that you left. You were told to walk away from the bundle and line up in a row of one. And you had to walk through, and your hair was cut off. That was the first thing they did. Not only your hair on your head, but all over, wherever you had hair, it was shaved off. From there, you were brought into a huge, big shower room, which had showers. The same shower room, though, had water, plus it had gas pellets as well. We were, at that time, chosen for work. By the time we got out from there, we were about 3,000 women. We were handed a gray dress. Being I'm small, so I stepped all over that gray dress. One dress size was for everybody. So I had the same dress size that somebody, let's say, was 5'6" or 5'7", but I was only 5 foot. But managed, we came into another huge barrack, but they had sort of bunk beds, but it wasn't bunk beds, it was like planks put together. And we were in one of those makeshift bunk beds, 9 people. The first casualty was a girl on my bunk bed. She was from Bulgaria. They had brought in, and they gathered us. They had brought in transports at the same time from Bulgaria. We were from Hungary, and there was one from Greece. So we were all mixed up. As I said before, we were about 3,000 women. When we... Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. We were... I told you that the first casualty, this girl had very high fever. So now we don't know, did she die of dehydration? Did she die? We don't know what she, but by the morning, we all knew that she had very high fever that night, but there was no way that anybody could do anything for her. By the morning, she was dead. She was a 19-year-old girl. While we were in this particular barrack, which was in Birkenau, I was in Birkenau, and the block was 14A, the block that I was in. I was in Auschwitz 9 weeks, but now let me tell you episodes in these 9 weeks. After about 2 weeks being there, they collected us all and they undressed. We had to undress, and which we did quite often because we were quite often selected. And whoever had a pimple on the body, that pimple put them into the gas chambers. And surprisingly enough, that more of us didn't go because we were infested. That building was infested with bed bugs. And you could see them, loads of them. They were attacking you. At night, when it was dark, you were attacked, and everybody was so chewed up from these bed bugs that we all had pimples on our bodies. But somehow, somebody's pimples didn't show as much as others, but you were constantly selected, and those pimples really put you into the gas chambers. By the 3rd week, they were selecting us for labor. And somehow all the people from my hometown, we clung to one another. And they only needed a certain amount, let's say 2,500 or 2,700. We were the last ones, the end of this lineup, and they didn't need any more. And they mixed us up with the people that they selected that unfit for their purpose of work, and mixed us up with them. That meant that we were destined for the crematoria. But we were lucky because there was a very religious woman there by the name of Pani Gucha. Another transport had come in. We were completely nude. We weren't given any more back the dress that we had before. And another transport had come in, and they didn't have clothes yet. They had to wait for their clothes. This Pani Gucha took us and mixed us up, and instead to marching us towards the gas chambers, she marched us into that group, and she says, no matter what's going to happen, they are starving, so they'll starve a little more. And we were all mixed in with that group. And we managed to survive because we were mixed into that group. Eventually, we were selected again after 9 weeks, and we were in her block, in this Pani Gucha's block. She was very helpful. The people that were elderly, let's say, they had already gray hair, and it started to grow again. And it showed like gray roots. So what she would take is mud, the dirt, and she would rub it in on their scalp, not to see that they are gray. And many other things. She said to people to slap your face, to slap themselves, that their cheeks should look rosy to pass Mengeles selection. She was there for quite a few years, so she knew a few tricks to help us, and she says, make sure that you go out on the transport. Some of the people that were pulled out, let's say, they were not fit for their purpose of work. She managed to push them in, after all, to go on the transport. How? She exchanged. When they didn't see, when they didn't look, she put a healthy one out and put the elderly or the sick into this, pushed it through, and always made sure that they were in the middle, that they shouldn't be seen by the SS or by the others that were selecting. Once they were selected, they went through, they were able to get out, and this is how some of the elderly and some of the sick managed to get out of Auschwitz. The ones that she selected, she pulled out, the healthy ones, she managed to push them through again, that he should select them again. In other words, she had quite a few tricks which helped quite a few people. In other words, our own helped our own. No one else